Hi, my name is Dr. Samantha Miles and I am the Subject Coordinator for the BSc Applied Accounting at Oxford Brookes Business School, Oxford Brookes University. The purpose of this video is to run through how to deliver a good presentation. As part of your BSc Applied Accounting, you will be expected to create a presentation file and deliver this to your mentor in advance of your actual presentation. This file also has to be included as part of the BSc Applied Accounting submission through our online portal. During your third mentor meeting, you will be expected to present your findings of your research and analysis project visually and verbally, using your presentation slides as visual aids. You should discuss with your mentor what this will entail, and the individual arrangements will differ from student to student in terms of whether you do this face-to-face or through an online platform such as Zoom or Google Meets, and also whether you will be engaging with an audience or whether you will just be delivering your presentation to your mentor. So why does Oxford Brookes Business School require you to include a presentation as part of the BSc Applied Accounting? These skills aren't assessed during your ACCA exams, and so it's important to give you the opportunity for you to develop your interpersonal and communication skills, and also to give you the opportunity for you to convey your ideas more visually and verbally. This is really important within employment because most of the jobs within finance will require some kind of presentation skills and for you to be able to summarise information, to extract key points from a report, for example, and to communicate that in an effective, simple and understandable way to management and to fellow workers in a summarised form. So there are a few things to bear in mind when you are creating your presentation. First of all, focus on the analysis, findings and conclusions from your research and analysis project. You would have gone on a very long journey to create this project, and so there's a tendency to get embroiled with the process. That's not what the presentation is about. The presentation should really focus on what you found, how you've evaluated it, and those conclusions that you've drawn from your research. Please bear in mind that the maximum delivery time is just 15 minutes. It's very difficult to present the whole of your report and all of the process and everything within that time span. So you really do have to focus on those key elements which you want to communicate to your audience, the most important aspects of your research. So within 15 minutes, it's very difficult to present more than 10 to 20 slides. So try to aim for that. If you go over 20 slides, then you're trying to put too much in, and if you've got less than 10 slides, then the general rule is that you haven't actually done enough and that you need to give a bit more content. When you structure your presentation, so this is the actual presentation file rather than the physical presentation, it's important to cover the approach and the introduction very briefly. Because, as I've already mentioned, the main focus for the presentation should be on the analysis, the findings and the conclusions from your research. Please also bear in mind that your presentation are just visual aids. You do not have to include everything from your research and analysis project. It's really like an aide-memoire for you to engage your audience. So each of the slides have to be engaging. So use graphics, for example, nice graphs, and make sure that they're easy for the audience to understand. So if your audience is spending most of their time trying to read lots and lots of dense text, then they're not going to be following what you say during the presentation. So keep your slides simple and relevant to your main message. The conclusions are an essential part of the assessment criteria, so please include your conclusions and give them due consideration. So more than just 1 or 2 bullet points. Make sure that you're trying to actually address some of your research questions within your conclusions. But again, keep it simple and keep it relevant to your main message. When developing your own PowerPoint slides, presentation slides, it is really important that you do not use a prepared template or rely on the presentation slides generated by other students. At Oxford Brookes University, we expect you to create your own presentation that summarises your own research and analysis findings. So we are looking to see that you understand how to present and how to create this file yourself. If you do rely on the use of a template, this will result in an investigation to your academic integrity. When you are delivering your presentation to your mentor, it is absolutely natural to feel anxious and nervous about this process. Even big pop stars and actors get really anxious and nervous sometimes about presenting, and so it's pretty normal for you and your fellow students to feel the same. However, you can try to harness those nerves through preparation and planning to try to turn them into a delivery of a good performance. Now, a good presentation has content appropriate for the audience, it will have a clear structure, and it's going to be presented in an engaging way. And so I'm going to go through a couple of points in terms of how to engage your audience. When you're presenting to an audience, it's very useful to think about your body language. So some hints, for example, not to put your back towards the audience, not to move around too much, not to play with pens or with your keys in your pocket and so forth. To think about what you're doing with your hands so that you are not over gesticulating, for example. Make sure that your visual aids are very clear and unobstructed from your own body language, but be sort of open and try to be engaging. There is a short video where the link is at the end of this presentation, but also there is a link within the information pack that shows some of the common errors when people are presenting and how to hopefully maximise your engagement through your body language. Secondly, it's really important to engage your audience. Now again, it can be quite intimidating seeing those people in front of you when you're nervous. And so a good tip is to try to scan the room just above the audience eye level, because that will make people feel like they're really included and that you're talking to them rather than just at them or just ignoring them. But it's less intimidating than if you focus and try to maintain eye contact with 1 or 2 individuals within the audience. Try to manage your anxiety. As I've mentioned before, it's really natural to feel anxious and nervous, but try to remember that the audience is on your side. They want you to succeed. Your mentor wants you to succeed. And so they will be trying to encourage you through their own body language and their facial gestures and so forth to try to make you feel relaxed. Also, the best way to develop your presentation skills is practice. Practice, practice, practice. So try to build your confidence up. Look at the room beforehand if it's a presentation that's actually physically in a room. But most importantly, run through your presentation. Check your timings. Allow yourself so many minutes per slide so that you don't overrun on those 15 minutes. Remember that your conclusions are a really fundamental part of your presentation, so you don't want to be timed out and not to be delivering your conclusions within those 15 minutes. So practice, practice, practice. So let's look at some of the common errors that may occur. Look back at the information pack at all times. It's there for you for information on the assessment criteria, and for the presentation it says that you need to include a copy of your presentation as part of your submission, but also that the presentation summarises the findings, the analysis and the conclusions of the report. So in other words, it does not focus on the process. Yeah? It has to be indicative of the content of your research and analysis report, and it has to have proper conclusions. So having weak or no conclusions will be a reason for failure. You also have to make sure that your presentation consists of 10 to 20 slides. So too many slides or too little slides is problematic. Make sure that you have a presentation that is capable of being delivered within 15 minutes. So if your presentation is running on to 18, 20, 25 minutes, have a look at it. Is it overcrowded? Do you have too much dense text and very small font within those slides? Remember, they're supposed to be a visual aid, and so it's not particularly useful for the audience just to be faced with pages and pages of writing. Now, on the other side, it's also important not to overuse bullet points. Bullet points are great as long as they're self-explanatory. If you have a bullet point which is only 1 or 2 words, it's not really giving us any indication that you understand what you're analysing. So a lack of analysis can also be a reason for failure. This may be apparent through, say, the inclusion of a business model, which is just a generic picture of the model, rather than showing how that business model has been applied to your research and analysis project. It could also be where you present graphs but don't include any discussion of those graphs. So you don't have any bullet points providing the analysis of the data which is pictured within the graphs. Now, graphs are very important, but make sure that the axes are labelled correctly and that the graphs don't contain too much data, that they're not overly complicated. So overall, you're looking for a nice professional appearance. Use graphics, use charts rather than tables, and have it as an engaging presentation. So lots of colour, lots of pictures, but also remember that this is for a degree, and so there has to be a serious amount of analysis and findings linking back to your research project. And finally, some useful resources for you, starting with the information pack that has advice in relation to what is required for the presentation and the assessment criteria, but also some links to videos to help you create a professional presentation. 2 of those links I've also included here. So I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation, that you found it useful, and I would like to wish you good luck in creating your own presentation and submitting it successfully for the degree.